And we bring you some live pictures right now in Havana. Mourners continuing to pay their respects to Fidel Castro. And they've been lining up since yesterday for public tributes following the Cuban leader's death.
Memorials are happening all across Cuba, including in Holguín. This new video of people waiting in line there today. And meanwhile, world leaders such as Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro are starting to arrive in Havana ahead of Castro's funeral. Local 10, the only station with a crew in Cuba right now.
And we do have complete coverage on Fidel Castro's death and all the memorials and tributes going on right now. Joining us right now from Havana is Local 10 News anchor Calvin Hughes. Good afternoon, Calvin.
Christy, Janice, good afternoon, and once again a national day of mourning here across the country of Cuba, and people have been lining up early this morning. But unlike yesterday, we can see the end of the line today. It's more like hundreds of people who turned out today as opposed to tens of thousands who turned out yesterday. And that memorial service stretching well into the night, well after 1, possibly even 2 o'clock in the morning. But take a look over my shoulder there. You can see lots of people still turning out today as they come with their families and still sharing stories to pay tribute to Fidel Castro, who passed away on Friday at the age of 90 years old. Well, this morning we noticed at the U.S. Embassy along the Malecon, the U.S. flag, Old Glory, was not flying at half-staff, unlike the Cuban flag that has been flying at half-staff for days now. And we haven't seen if other embassies have lowered their flag to half-staff out of respect for Cuba's National Day of Mourning. Let's take you back now to those long lines from today. Starting this morning, Cubans coming from all over the country, not just in Havana, to visit a memorial site. And last night we had a chance to go inside and we saw a range of emotions from Cubans, some very sad, others emotionless as they walked by. What was a very simple memorial, 2 placards from the Cuban Communist Party recognizing Castro as its founder and its leader, and a poster of a very young-looking Castro from the 1990s, and a wreath. Here's how one woman remembers El Comandante. I was born with the revolution. I have learned about him, his values, his ideas, and those are things we fought for what we have, our independence, our sovereignty, for us to continue his legacy. Well, here's a look at some of the dignitaries who are arriving by the hour now. This morning, Nicolas Maduro, the embattled president of Venezuela, paid tribute today, paying his respects. And he said, quote, we are saying in part that he is here, he says, to pledge his support and solidarity for the Cuban people. I'm joined now by my colleague Hatzel Vela, who has been up all morning following of the crowds here. Yes, in the early morning hours. And you saw some of the young people who were here, the other generation, a generational gap we always talk about, but some young folks are showing up today to pay respect.
That's right. We started early this morning, and what we wanted to really do is focus on the young people this time. The line started getting long, probably at 8 in the morning. Remember, initially they said that they were going to start allowing people at 9. That's not the case. They started early, so to maybe deal with the amount of people that were expected to come here. That's right, there were so many yesterday. But again, focusing this time on young people, we saw even babies. And then we asked parents why they're bringing babies, why they're bringing young folks. And here's their message.
A sea of people below the massive image of Fidel. Several lines all leading to the Jose Marti Memorial. This time in line, we found a lot of young folks, babies even, like 4-month-old Daniel.
Eres el futuro.
His grandma, Tatiana Toledo, tells me little Daniel is the future, and one day she wants to tell him he was here. In books, she'll read about Fidel Castro's legacy. It's the legacy which Rachel Valdez says has made a difference in her life. She knew she'd be in line a long time, so she shows us how she packed her water to keep it cool.
Yo le debo mucho a Fidel.
I owe him so much, she says. Because of him, I am who I am. The 23-year-old is studying to be a dentist. We also ran into Carlos, who's 8 years old. His mother says it's good to teach them at an early age that what they have is because of Fidel. Carlito then weighs in, says he's here to pay homage.
You can hear.
All right, so just one of the many stories of young people here waiting in line. What's ironic about this is that we know immigration is a huge issue here in Cuba. So you talk about the future of Cuba, but yet on the other side of the streets, we see an influx constantly of people typically young people leaving the island hoping for a better life elsewhere, especially in America.
And I noticed that schools were open today, or were they closed today?
I believe they were closed today, so that, as well as jobs everywhere on the island.
Government offices.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
all right. Our Hatzel Vela reporting. Thank you, Hatzel. And we want to show you now other memorials that are happening all across the country. There is one happening in Holguín. This is where hundreds of people have turned out once again to pay tribute to Fidel Castro. And also there are other tributes happening all across the country as well, in Villa Clara and also in Las Tunas. But again, they are all saying and paying their respects to their former Cuban leader. And such is the case tonight, where there is going to be another mass rally, or the first mass rally rather, that's going to take place at 7 o'clock tonight in the plaza right behind me. I'm joined now by my colleague Glenna Milberg. And Glenna, you had a chance to go out. We talked about this yesterday, about this solemn oath to continue the legacy of Fidel Castro, part of it being the revolution. Today you had a chance to actually see it firsthand.
And it is an amazing process, and I think this is a critical part of this mourning period, and everybody is participating, they say. I want to show you some video of what that looked like in one particular place in the Vedado section of Havana, a little neighborhood. There is a little room in a building that is selling insurance, car insurance, life insurance, and they set up a little table with a little book. And it's a very easy, simple process. People walk up. Over the book, there is a sign that has Fidel Castro's 2000 oath to the revolution, and they put their name down just like a little petition, and then they walk away. It is such a simple process being repeated in literally 1,900 plus locations all over the country, in schools, some in homes. Every neighborhood has this opportunity to make it easy for the people. What this oath is an oath by Fidel Castro, first signed by him on May 1st of the year 2000. For those of you who know what May Day is, the national holiday to labor, that was a very significant date. And it is Fidel Castro's words, fighting to keep the revolution alive forever, the nationalism of it, the socialism of it, and giving Cuba an outsized role, if you will, on the world stage. And today, every Cuban citizen that we've run into so far either already had or plans to put their name in that book. And remember, Calvin, this is now, you know, we've been talking about, is it a choice? Can people choose not to do this? You know, technically they can, but here is a record, a written record of their oath to the revolution. And for a Cuban citizen, on face value, that is very important for them to have. Yeah.
If we can fast forward to tonight, because we talked about this just a bit last time, because news was sort of trickling out. So we have 20 plus presidents and prime ministers who are coming here, but it's all going to take place, and we see some of the chairs already set up there, and then there's going to be some other I guess, features of the rally tonight. Can you speak a bit about that?
What we know is, you can see, I don't know, from this angle, you can see big screens. They have a very comprehensive visual presentation, films of from day one, probably before January 1st, of the trip down from the Sierra Maestres and started the revolution. But all Fidel, all the time, a very comprehensive tribute to the life and times and history of the revolution. One of the purposes is to say that it does not end here. Yeah.
And we know that if possibly, we don't have confirmation of this, but Raul Castro, the younger brother of Fidel Castro, the leader of Cuba right now, may in fact give a keynote speech.
That's what we hear. And again, curious that we don't have confirmation, because that would be a very big deal and a big draw, and a message to Cuban citizens about their leader. So it's, I think there is a significance to the fact that publicly we can't confirm that.
Okay, our Glenna Milberg reporting. Of course, we'll have much more from you coming up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 6 as well. Then tonight at 11 o'clock. And on that note, we will send it back to you in the studio, knowing that we will cover every possible angle of this story.
All right, we will be talking to you later in the day. All right, thanks so much, Calvin.